Garouden, The Way of the Lone Wolf, is the most recent fighting with a martial art focused anime provided by Netflix, which is actually a very quick and an enjoyable watch. Furthermore, Garouden as a series has some very interesting lore and history to break down, closely connected with the BAKI universe. To begin, Garouden was created by this dude in the form of a bunch of novels that were released from 1985 to 2003, making up the original Garouden story. During that time frame, there was 2 manga created, one that only lasted 1 year by this dude, from 1989 to 1990, and then the much more popular one that started in 1996 by Itagaki, the of course creator of BAKI. 3 years before he begun that series himself, which is pretty cool, with his version of the manga being published from 1996 to all the way in 2010. However, it's important to note that most of the chapters were released in the early days until it was eventually put on hiatus for almost 15 years now. Itagaki's Garouden manga adaptation to many is the main and most popular version of the story, but it does face some issues as it quickly got to a point past the novels, resulting in a lot of manga original content and changes to the story, making it very unclear to read at times. Furthermore, the original author of the novels released a sequel novel series for Garouden, known as Shin Garouden, with around 5 volumes now, and even a manga adaptation of this series that lasted 1 year by this guy. And there's more. Itagaki also started another Garouden manga as a prequel to the original, named Garouden Boy. This began, I believe, in 2004. I'm not sure whether it's ongoing or cancelled, probably somewhere in limbo at this point. Additionally, many Garouden characters have cameos in the BAKI world, whether it be background characters when explaining abilities, or even some fights in side manga where some Garouden characters can be considered main characters, leading many to believe that BAKI and Garouden are in a shared universe as a way for Itagaki to pay homage for pretty much the story that potentially kicked off his career before he even began BAKI, allowing people to see his amazing art, which back then was already incredible. To continue, there was apparently a movie made, and even PlayStation 2 games released for the series, which is pretty cool. But now we have the anime to talk about. So from my research, this seems to be based on the novels, with some moments from Itagaki's manga adaptation, but let's say more so the novels, featuring the same unclear nature of the story, which if you watch the anime is very clear, and if you read the manga, you know about all of that. Many characters, we don't even know who they are and don't really learn straight away. But a key difference to note between this anime and the manga is who is viewed as the protagonist, or more so, who we follow throughout the story. For the manga, it was this dude, who was an important character in the anime, but not the protagonist. But the Lone Wolf anime adaptation is pretty much the story of Juzo Fujimaki, a key character in the manga, who to many is quite polarizing in that version, who was still a very important character in that, just not having the focus on him telling his story like the anime did here. Additionally, a lot of the character designs in the manga aren't really used for the anime, as you see here for Juzo, but you still get the idea for a lot of the other ones, with the writing of the characters for the most part pretty much being the same. However, I do much prefer Itagaki's character designs and do wonder why they didn't go down this approach. Maybe they didn't want it to look too close to BAKI. However, on that note, considering the success of BAKI on Netflix, they could have used that aspect to market the series more and get more people watching, but I guess they didn't want to do that approach. Now, with all of this chaos explained, the anime is pretty much the story of one of the key characters of the Garouden story, focusing on him rather than who the manga focuses on. So let's get into the anime and what I enjoyed about it. First up, considering it's an anime, animation, honestly, I enjoyed it a lot. It wasn't like this crazy blowing you away type of thing, but it was very enjoyable. It didn't have those ugly CGI moments that like BAKI tends to use in the early days. And I know a lot of people dislike Kangen, even though I'm on the opposite side of the fence. I really enjoy Kangen. Animation wise, Garouden probably appeals to more people. When it comes to the fight sequences, grappling is a very important part of Garouden, especially Juzo's character and his martial art. With them using a smart editing or animation trick to pretty much save time, cutting to pretty much his inner demon or inner wolf to transition from certain moves, I guess not requiring them to animate some of the harder stuff while still giving us an understanding of what's happening and also making it badass to a degree, so I guess props to them with taking that approach. And I would say this is probably the most realistic fighting anime there is now. Compared to Kangen, it's far more realistic. Yes, it starts out with him fighting a bear, but the fight was not easy, and based on all the exchanges after that, it's very clear that Garouden is far more realistic than BAKI or Kangen, with the original manga also being like that. Yes, they're above like anyone in our world, but compared to those series, definitely at a more tame level, which is at a very enjoyable aspect. Now before I move on to the next aspects to break down, this channel is now partnered with GamerSupps, with a 10% discount code for you legends to use while also supporting the channel directly. I hope you check out some of the content in the description. I touched upon before the inner wolf aspect for Juzo and some of the other characters. That's a trope that tends to happen in a lot of anime, but I still enjoyed it. When he lets go, that murderous intent goes all out, that's some of the most badass moments in the anime. I would still say I prefer the manga story more than the anime. That's because the protagonist is far more interesting and engaging, which we got hints at in the anime version when we got to see him doing stuff, pushing the plot forward more than really any other character. With of course Juzo wanting to take out the protagonist of this manga, them having a mini exchange that was cut short, building up for later seasons the continuation of the story. A key thing that we got to see was of course a mini tournament, which was very cool. Some fights weren't as good as others, but for the most part very enjoyable, especially the final fight on the boat. There's setup for other tournaments which make up pretty much the manga version of the story. Two big opposing tournaments with key characters being introduced that are going to participate in those. We don't know much about them, and that's pretty much how the story of Garouden is presented. You learn more about them as you dive further into the story. That's why it's really unclear in the early days. For the opening of the anime, I don't know what that was. That was definitely some wacky shit, not my cup of tea. And then the other aspect to talk about is how short it was. The anime was only 8 episodes. Yes, it covered everything it needed to cover, the origin story of Juzo, him entering the mini tournament, revealing his overall goals, and then setting up tournaments for the future of the story. So I do hope it gets further seasons, further episodes, so we can actually see the full story of Garouden played out from his perspective. As mentioned, the manga technically never finished, so maybe we're going to get the proper conclusion from the novels in the anime. I personally haven't read the novels. If you have, let me know your thoughts on those down below, and whether the anime's connection is close to that or not. I've only read Itagaki's manga and some of the side stuff released by him as well, typical as a BAKI fan here. However, as a whole, I definitely recommend checking it out. The episodes are short, there's not many episodes, it's engaging throughout, there's a lot of fights. You could say there's a mystery element due to us not knowing anything about really any character. I had some benefit as reading the manga prior to this, so perhaps I was a little more excited to see what some characters would do. But if you're an anime only and you already finished watching it, let me know your thoughts down below. Did you enjoy it? What parts were unclear? And overall, do you want to see more? And with that, thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel. I talk about fighting anime here. That's what I do, Mysterious Weeb. Check out some of the other content. Shout out to these members, the Mad Lads, absolute legends. But that's it guys. Peace.